Tell me what happens when it's going to happen. Okay, so Ron's got a presentation to talk about walking in Dad's footsteps, which is a
commentary on our, when my dad was shot down, he was hit by a French family, and we went and visited them. So that's what this is about. But let me first start out. It's really great to be back here in Shreveport, because we used to call Shreveport our home. Several of the members here have, came from Shreveport or got married in Shreveport. So we used to call this home. I went to high school here, grade school. Dad got rotated every 2 or 3 years. So my oldest brother, he was born in Shreveport. I was born in Kansas. The next brother was born in Oklahoma. The next one was born in California. And then the last one was back in Shreveport. So again, Shreveport was our home. So I have a special attachment to this. This is what it looked like in, September 30th, 1941. That's how Shreveport looked at that time. And that's my dad when he was about 18 years old or 20 years old. Yeah, don't I look that great? But
So thin.
yeah, so thin. So, yeah, brother, I love you too. So he finished his bombardier school at Williams Army Flying Field in Chandler, Arizona, in September 26, 1942, and 2 days later, he got assigned to Shreveport, Louisiana. And so he got here to get advanced training school. And while he was here, he learned how to navigate. So he became a bombardier navigator here. And 335th Bomb Group was the training group that was out of here. And he's with the 476 Bomb Squadron. So he had his members of his flight crew. This is his training crew here. McLaughlin, Ahorn. My dad is this guy right here in the middle. And then you had Archer, McLaughlin, and Stutter. And we found an order from April 4th, 1943 here. And this is his class here. And everybody in this whole thing went to the 322nd, 449th. This little crew up here is flak bait, the original flak bait crew. They trained here also. And my dad was in the same training class as they were.
Can you point out who, is it Sergeant Stoddard?
Yes, Sergeant Stoddard.
Which one is he?
That one right there.
I can't see.
He's an armored gunner. Maybe you know him.
Maybe.
Okay.
I think we were in basics together.
This is the original flak bait crew. That's on the sides. Why does this thing keep cutting out? And so this picture was taken on October 22nd, 1943. And so you have the pilot as Farrell, and then you have co-pilot Moore. Redmond is the navigator, Manuel, Thiemann, and Tyler. So there's the original crew of flak bait after 17 missions, and they only had one duck on the plane at that time, which was the diversionary that they flew.
What's a diversionary?
In other words, they went out in the middle of the channel, and they light up everything, and France is trying to figure out who's doing this, and so they're seeing what's happening, so they just get in the formation and just let's see what happens. That's really what it is, and see who lights up.
Okay.
And then they fly back. Okay. So it's a non-combat mission.
They have weapons though, or they?
Yeah, but they're not. They ain't got no bombs or any of that. They're just
decoys.
Decoy. Yep. and they're just seeing what's happening, what lights up. On Dad flew his 5th mission on September 5th in flak bait. So he has 1 mission to him. However, his whole crew got changed out from his training class to where he's at with this group here. We have Mildred, Grubb, Bolesta, Reimer, Lamb, and Cunningham. They don't know why they got changed out. He just knows he ended up in a different plane with a totally different crew. We still haven't figured that one out.
How many missions had he had at that time? The question I'm asking is, was some of the crew killed or transferred out, period? When the crew breaks up,
Yes.
when a crew breaks up for, like my pilot was killed, after that mission, we were substitutes on various aircraft, various crews.
This happened very early on. I think even before he got to England, when he.
I see.
They just changed out, and he was gone from his original crew.
Okay.
And they hadn't flown any missions yet. So Dad was down here, and he's studying hard, and all work and no play makes Dad's name was Stanley, a dull boy. So he would hop on the soldier's 5-cent daily trolley pass right here from Shreveport, and he would go down to the fairgrounds where they had the state fair, and out there was an outdoor roller rink at that time. That was his hobby. That was his love. He loved roller skating because he was very good. He knew how to dance roller skating, and so that was his activity.
So is that his back to us? Is that him?
Oh, no. I just found a picture off of the internet. But you know what? Who we met? Mom.
Wow.
And she lived about a half a mile from the roller rink, and she went roller skating 3 times a week. She loved roller rink, and she would do all the flips and all that other stuff and knew how to dance. So they teamed up together. And Mom's father, he worked on the Texas and Pacific Railroad, and he was with them for 40 years. His mom's sister, Ivy, worked at the Southern Maid Donut shop here. She was Miss Shreveport. And they were really beautiful women at that time. Well, that didn't come out right, but you know what I mean. Back in 1943, they're always been beautiful in my eyes. That didn't come out right. Okay. All right. So, then on April 6, 1943, Mom went out to Texas to go visit some of her cousins and came back, and there was a troop train in the terminal here in Shreveport, ready to go. And my dad was waiting on her. When she got back from her trip, he had already been to what we call Big Daddy and Mama, Mom's mother and father, and asked permission to marry. So she got engaged that night. Then he got on the troop train and left. But she said yes. And at that time, she was only 16 years old. All right. And then on the way, on the troop train, he writes a love letter to her. I just happened to find it, and I'm going, oh my God. So it's kind of personal, but you know, she asked him, hey, why do you love me? He says, I first fell in love with you when we were roller skating together, and we seemed like a good fit, and I thought it's a great time to get married. But he held off asking her to actually get married because he didn't want to. He wanted to come back alive and marry her. Is really what the story was. And one of the advices that he gave her was Hey, you ought to go to school, learn something.
Hey, use that one right there.
Use that one? Use the other one. Thank you. No, my voice is lower. Okay. So she says, hey, learn something that's useful so you can fall back on. So just keeping that in mind. He gave her directions and some guidance as he's going off to war. And so the next thing you know, we get some little thing here that he's at Dakar, Africa. This is their, I guess, money.
Short snorter.
Huh?
Short snorter.
What?
I don't know what that is.
Every time you fly to a new field or new country, you people sign it.
Ah, well, this is the first time that he's actually with his new crew. So we have Grubb, Cunningham, Lamb, Reimer, and Mildred. So they're all together. He's on a new plane with a new crew. And so, and this is before he got to England. And then, so, you know, he's had a couple of flights, but on November the 3rd, a bunch of Marauders went out, and as he approached Evreux, he was hit by aircraft, and took his right engine out. The left engine was overheating, and the pilot said, better bail out now because we're not going to make it over the ocean. And they didn't want to go over the channel and die parachuting into the channel. So everybody got out of the plane, and then everybody got out of the plane, and Dad's helped by the French underground and sheltered for 5 weeks on a farm. And this happened to be the bomb run of that day, showing. Well, here's the rail. I guess that's the runway. It's got a lot of potholes in it, but maybe they were after the support stuff here. You know, so. Well, so he's there, and then there's a whole thing of them. They're going to try to get him out, and on December 10th, they got a bunch of them, and they have. Sorry about that. I'm going backwards. Why is that doing that? Oh. Is this thing working? Oh, I don't know what it's doing.
You can use the keyboard.
Keyboard. Back. Just go back. Sorry about that. Keep on going back. All right. So go one forward. There we go. So I ain't used to these buttons. So anyway, they're going the way to Paris, and they have some guides: Alphonse Pasco, Andre Biaux, and Maury. And these are the guides that are got on trains and getting them into Paris. They're going to hold them up there for a little bit and then put a group of them together, and they're going to get them out of Paris and get them down to Gibraltar.
Quick question. How many people survived the air crash?
All of them survived.
Oh, okay.
And on that day, on December 17th, there's 14 of the men that were in that group got caught. They got a mole, and they caught them all. They caught all 14 of them. So a lot of B-17 guys in there, and of course some B-26 guys. And so on December the 9th, of course it's been, Mom didn't hear him since May, and now it's December. She gets the letter that he's missing in action, gets a call from Grandma that he's shot down. We don't know if he's alive or dead. And then she gets, the formal letter talking about that. And they talk about seeing some parachutes, and hopefully everything is all right. And then you go from December the 17th to arriving at his POW camp in Barth, Germany, at Stalag Luft 1, and that's Dad's drawing in his little Red Cross book that he had. He was a lot in, I guess, interrogating in a bunch of prisons. He was going to be shot because they thought he was a spy, and got beaten up pretty good in the prisons. But he talked his way around it and ended up getting on the train in a railroad car, and then they go for 3 days to get to the Barth, and they're being bombed at night because they settled in the train yards at night, and our forces would come over and bomb the train yards. And so there's a bunch of people in the railroad cars that got hit because of the shrapnel from our own bombing the rail yards. So that's what the Germans used to do. And so he started taking art lessons from Colonel Greening. He's a gentleman that's in the handout. He has some watercolors. So they had art lessons there, and he started taking art lessons. And so now he's filling up his book with planes and everything else. And so this is Home Sweet Home is what he used to call it, but his plane was the Duchess of Barksdale. So, and then this is May 1st. I think there's probably about 40 or 50 pages filled out, but on May 1st, they're liberated by the Russians. And BBC announced that Hitler's dead, and that was good news to end a perfect day. And he flies out of Stalag Luft 1 on a B-17 on May 12th. That little thing he said to Mom, hey, get yourself something so that you can fall back on. She joined the United States Nurses Corps. So she started to be a nurse. And you can see here, there's 2-2, 1945. And then on 8-7, she's transferred out. Well, when you're going to get married, you couldn't be in the Corps anymore. They threw you out. So if you're a woman who was going to get married, you lost that. But she talked to the school, and the Army had paid for all her education anyway, so they say, you can stay here and continue your courses. So that's what happened there, and she did. And then on December, that should be 26th, not 6th, 1945, they get married. So June, within 6 months, they're married. And they married here at St. Teresa's Church here in Shreveport. So then, life goes on. Oh. 5 kids later. That's my older brother, Steve. That's the handsome me. I did look a little skinnier then. And Rick is here, my brother's here, and Gary's here, and Beverly passed away in 2000. In 2000, yeah. But Mom was busy being a homemaker and making the family. In the interim, out of Barksdale here, he got into B-29s, and he was a bombardier on a B-29. And out of Barksdale, they had the 615th Very Heavy Bomber Squadron. So there he is right there in the reserves, learning how to fly a B-29, a bombardier and B-29. And then at that time, it was the Strategic Air Command. I guess it was the Berlin Airlift. He was involved in all of that thing with the B-29s. And then he fights in the Korean War. And here he is in the bombardier section with his parachute on, and the name of his plane is the Shining Examples. So there's the whole crew lineup there when he fought in the Korean War in the 50s. And then he retires from active duty and of January of 31st, 64. So I did kind of get better and taller from the original. A little skinnier. And there's my grandmother and my grandfather from Michigan. That's where Dad's parents were from. And they celebrated their 50th anniversary on December 26, 1995. And Dad had his last flight in 1997. He got a brain tumor and didn't survive that. So, but yeah, it's interesting that you can see his B-26, then all his POW identification, and then all of the POW medal, and then all the other air medals that he got during the war. Well, that's 1997. And then my uncle, called him Uncle Roy, he lived in Shreveport, and I think he was a chief warrant officer, and he ran the hospital here, but at this time, he had retired. But they said they have an ex-prisoner of war luncheon here at Barksdale. So we came down to that. And Dad had his POW book that he had. And so we donated that book here to the 8th Air Force here at Barksdale. So his POW book is here. And that was 2010. And then my brother Gary gets some strange email from some dude, Michael Moore's LeBlanc. He found some information on the Stalag Luft 1 where we put something about Dad on that, and he wanted to know more about that mission because he's researching it. And we didn't know who this guy was, but we took a chance and we reached out to him, and this guy specializes in escape invaders. And so his whole life has been studying all of that, and he particularly was interested in this December 17th event where Dad got caught. Well, unbeknownst to me, I found little pictures of Dad had. And I see this is Dad here, but this is, I don't know who these guys were, or any of them. So we just decided we're going to try to figure out who these people are. And this is the recovered Allied military personnel file. And we see here's a Hector Lemaire, and a couple other French people who helped Dad. So Michael contacts an associate of him called Louis, and he lives in the area. And Louis searches and finds this guy's still alive. This guy's at 20 in 1943, and he's 95 now. And so we're going, okay. And then Louis' friend comes out and says, did you know your dad is in this French book for prisoners? No. And going, who's this guy? Oh, that's Dad's Cunningham. That's Cunningham. That's from his flight. So now I know one member out of that picture other than my dad. And that's so there was 2 flyers with my father where he stayed. And then Laurent, he finds the crash site and goes out there, and he sends me the GPS because I want to have it in case down the road I get to go visit. And so I got that, and then he has a metal detector, and he's finding all the stuff from the crash site on both sides of the road. And then he says, oh, well, since Hector's son is now, Pierre, is alive, this is where your father stayed. So we now know exactly where Dad stayed. And this is some more pictures that Dad had, but he had some names down here that he assigned to it that I guess he remembered because this is in October of 1944. So somehow he got a picture of afterwards, but I don't know how he got these pictures, but but he hasn't. And Laurent goes and visits the family and presents pictures from 1943 of my father and all that whole group together. So this is the French family that held him. So Pierre, he entered the resistance at end of 1942, and this gives the Vengeance Network line. Then he was in charge of coordinating reception activities and security for the whole area where he was living. So I asked Louis if we didn't know any French, so we said, we need a guide, and would you mind helping? And he went, no, I'll set it up for you. The only thing I had to do was, my wife said, you ain't going by yourself. So my brother Rick graciously volunteered to come. He's a world traveler, so he was used to, Rick, raise your hand. He's a world traveler, so he's used to, he's the skinny one. That's right, brother. Yeah. So he volunteered to come along, and then, I kind of set it up because I sandwiched that between our visit to Paris and our visit to Normandy. We put them right in the middle with the visit of these folks. And so we got there, and Louis, he gets us to Les Maisons Fougat, this administration building, and inside they have a whole setup here of the plane. That's Dad's plane, and this is all the shrapnel and everything else they had on the plane. A little museum that they put it up. And then, here is Louis, my brother Rick, and me, of course, and then here's the current mayor, and then this was the past mayor, and he's a researcher, and he writes books. So we had a nice gathering of local officials, and then I took a picture outside of the researchers. That's the current mayor, and that is Laurent, Rick, Louis, and they outside of the administrative hall. So I wanted a picture of all of that together.
Ron, I may have missed this, but is this Normandy?
No, this is France.
Well, Normandy is France.
Well, Normandy is France, but this is not Normandy itself. They're about 50 or 60 miles north of Paris.
Oh, okay.
But it's in the Normandy area.
Yeah, but you're north of Paris.
Huh?
This is north of Paris.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so again, we had the GPS. Here is the village, and then this little road right here is where the crash site is, and there was crash debris on this side and crash debris on that side of the road. So we go out here, and then we have, the son of the former mayor, the mayor himself. This guy is the journalist. This guy is a former mayor. This guy's a former mayor. And this guy is one of the guys who actually saw the plane come down. And we have, I recorded it because it's all French, so we got it translated, but he remembers seeing the parachutes come out, seeing the plane crash and burn, and seeing one of the guys, Pasco, go up and actually help the down. One of the guys got caught, which was Lamb. He broke his leg, so the Germans caught him, but everybody else escaped. And so, he was just bringing up bits and pieces of the plane, and so we've got remembrances that we brought home. And again, this is André Bion. He saw 2 airmen parachuting, saw a plane burning on impact, and saw Alphonse Pasco talking to the captured airman, William Lamb. And so now we're done with the field where the plane crashed, and they're going to bring us to the family that hit him and sheltered Dad for 5 weeks. And so this is us greeting Pierre, who owns the property now. And then this is all his family, and they're looking at all the photographs that I had of the original photographs of them in 1943. And here Pierre and his daughter, they're identifying everybody on that sheet of paper that we had as to who those people were that helped Dad. And then here's the documentation. This guy was Pasco, and that's Murray. And this is the Abbey Rochard, and then the rest of it is Hector's Lemaire's family. And this guy was a seminarian, and he was helping us, helping Dad. It's very interesting that Murray, he was in charge of the head of the whole resistance in that area. And so he's got a lot of French awards and then some Distinguished Service Order Medal of Freedom from the United States. But probably the biggest guy with the most rewards is from Alfonso Pasco. That guy was there on D-Day, behind the lines, helping our guys. And he got awarded the British King's Medal of Courage of the United Kingdom. So he helped all our boys on June 6th, right? 1944. Yeah. So these are the kind of guys that helped us. The French researchers, when I showed them this, he said, "You got the holy grail of pictures here, because you've got all the lead resistance for that whole area in one picture with your dad." And he was so thankful to have that information. So I asked, "Hey, where did Dad and they stay?" Well, they brought us back through this little corral and saw this little building here. And I know, what is that? He says, "That's our bakery. That's where we made bread." And that's where they stayed through the winter. That was their home. And it was heated because they baked bread every day, and the warmth of the bread from the stones kept them warm at night. So that's their hiding place. And then they would work the fields during the daytime, because they were all dressed up like French people with their costumes, and the Germans be around, and they're out there just working away. And that's how they hid themselves. And in walking in Dad's footsteps, here he is in this building here, and now here's my brother Rick and I in the same location. And so here is Pierre, and here is Andre with us in that location. So that was cool. And then we got back to the farm, and we had some wine and some goodies, and then the whole family here. So the previous mayor, and then this is the daughter, and our researcher, and the current mayor, and again Andre here. So we now know everybody that helped us there. And then Andre dies in January 26, 2021. He's a true patriot. He got turned in. They severely beat him to almost death, and then they put him on a boat and shipped him off. And they got orders to kill everybody on that boat. And the captain didn't obey those orders. So he survived. That's, those French people. Sorry. They were really heroes to us, because without them, Dad wouldn't be here. So my presentation here ends here. We want to thank the resistance helpers, anybody who does all the escaping evades, the dignitaries from the village that where Dad went down, and also Barksdale Air Force Base that looking forward to seeing again on the tarmac tomorrow. So that's it.